Hey everyone, George Farmer here, and today's video is about how I maintain my Aquascaper 600 by Evolution Aqua. It's been pretty much untouched for the last 5 or 6 days. I've been away for a while. It hasn't had any fertilisers, the fish haven't been fed, which I feel a little bit bad about, but a few days is okay without any food. They're fed more than generously otherwise. But you can see there's plenty of algae build up on the rocks. The glass is quite covered in algae. The plants are really healthy, no algae on the plants, that's a good sign. You can see there's a lot of surface scum on the surface of the water. That indicates to me that the circulation isn't too great. That's due to probably the pipes being quite dirty, the glassware is quite dirty, and the pre-filter in my external filter was probably quite clogged up. So it's going to be quite a big maintenance session, probably take me a good hour or two, but I'll compress that into a 10-minute video or so. So I hope you enjoy the video. Okay, first job is just to put a couple of towels down around the tank. It's in my main living room, which is carpet, and we obviously don't want too much aquarium water being spilt onto the carpet. It tends to upset my fiance. And the next job is to take out about 20 litres of water. That will give me plenty of room to put my hands in there without any danger of spilling any water, and clean the glass, etc. Okay, next job is to clean the glass. I've got a Dennerle product here called a Cleanator. It's like a fine wire mesh on one side and a sponge on the other, and the wire mesh is really good for cleaning stubborn algae. So it doesn't scratch the glass at all, so yeah, really good product, recommend these. So I pay particular attention to around the top of the glass. I have really hard water and it tends to leave a deposit from evaporation, so I have to move the glassware to one side just to make sure I get to all areas of the glass. Also pay particular attention to the corners of the tank. It's clear silicone, it's absolutely minimal clear silicone, you can't hardly see it, but if you do let it get covered in algae, it will turn green and it becomes unsightly, so it's worth paying particular attention to that clear silicone. As with any maintenance, prevention is better than cure, so even if it looks clean, it's a really good idea to give it a wipe anyway to prevent any build-up. This side of the aquarium does receive quite a lot of natural light, so it tends to be a little bit more algae build-up on this glass. So the action of me especially working around the bottom of the tank where the plants are, helps to lift up any waste organic matter into the water column, and hopefully that water is then going to be dragged into the filter and then actually removed. Once I clean the filter, the pre-filter especially, that will get rid of that waste organic matter, which will help prevent algae. So again, pay particular attention to the top there. You can see the background's black. That's because I have you can see the purple wallpaper behind. I don't usually use any background. If I've got a pale wall behind, I like to use the light spill of the light to spill onto the background and create a really nice background effect. But because I've got purple and it doesn't look particularly attractive, I've gone for a black background, which I think looks quite good. It contrasts nicely with the green of the plants and the yellow of the golden barbs. So for me it's the next best thing after having no background at all. And the 600, the Aquascaper 600, it's a really good size, 60 centimetres left to right, and then actually 50 centimetres front to back, so it's almost a square footprint, which is excellent for aquascaping. You can create really deep looking aquascapes with it. It's also really good for oxygen exchange, which is better for the whole aquarium. More oxygen, more beneficial bacteria, the happier the fish are, the happier the plants are. So it's just a really good thing to have a wide aquarium. You can see all that floating matter. A lot of that is just the surface scum now dislodged into the main water column. Hopefully that all gets sucked up into the filter, and also via a big water change, which I'll do last thing. And then just to make sure the glass is clean, you can look down the side of the glass and you can see any leftover algae that I've missed. There's a bit there. Algae tends to build up around the plant line as well, so the plants are really well established. The Monte Carlo and the hairgrass are really well established now, so you can be quite you know, tough on it. You don't need to really watch it. I can compress it down with the sponge, no problem. And we'll give that a trim later on. Okay, that's the glass clean. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is prune the carpet. So this is Micranthemum Monte Carlo mixed in with some Eleocharis pusilla. If you watch my first video on how I set this aquascape up, you'll know they are Dennerle In-Vitro plants. Monte Carlo in particular is quite a fast grower once it gets going, and you can see it's already built up a sort of 30mm thick carpet there. So I'm going to trim that back, and I'm actually going to pay particular attention to the front. So I kind of want a bit more height at the background, and that will help give a better sense of depth. But I trim it quite harshly at the front and at an angle. So I've got some shorter straight scissors here. You can use curved scissors, they're quite handy, or self-sprung scissors, but today I'm going to use these straight scissors. And you can be quite harsh with it really. It's a healthy plant, it responds really well to trimming. So I'm deliberately going quite near the substrate at the front, and then I'm going to leave it to grow quite thick at the back, towards the background. And like I say, that will help give us a better sense of depth. I don't really like seeing plants growing up against the front glass. It highlights the fact that the plants are in an aquarium, which I don't really like to see. I want to create the illusion that the plants are just, you know, in a floating column of water. We want to be minimising any effect of the aquarium and the equipment if we can. When you trim a plant, it automatically generates new growth and even bushier growth, because wherever you prune from, depending on the species of plant, but most carpeting plants, wherever you prune from, will generate 2 new stems. So you can get really bushy, dense growth. Another technique you can use to maintain your carpet is called mechanical retardation. That's just basically a fancy phrase for squashing the plant down. So I'll give you an example. I'll just get my hand and gently push, especially down at the front. Like I said, we want to create that illusion of depth. You can really push that down. The plant's super healthy, so it's going to respond. It's not going to do it any damage at all. Helps promote compact growth, which is what we like to see in carpets. So I'll just use my net now, and it's quite a long process. I just net off all the floating plants. I'm deliberately keeping the filter running because it's just going to help get rid of any waste organic matter that's escaped into the water column and suck it into the filter to be clean later on. So if you've watched any of my other aquarium maintenance videos, you know the importance of getting rid of as much waste organic matter as possible. Any excess build-up generally leads to algae, which we're always trying to avoid in aquascaping. Always like to think of plants and algae in competition with each other, and the better you look after your plants, the better condition you keep your plants in, the less chance you'll have of getting any algae. And the trick is to not let the aquarium build up to a stage where algae is going to proliferate. So preventative maintenance is better than corrective maintenance. So better to prevent the problem rather than correct the problem. So these are really healthy cuttings. If I wanted to, if I had a spare aquascape, or I wanted to add some Micranthemum Monte Carlo to another aquascape, I could easily use hundreds of tiny little stems that I've just trimmed and plant a whole new aquarium. And that's the beauty of growing healthy planted aquariums. If you've got more than one aquarium at home and you fancy adding a new plant, then you can always swap plants over, you know, try a new plant in another aquascape. So I like to run any one time at least 2 aquascapes at home. So while I'm doing this, I just want to give a shout out to all my YouTube subscribers. They've just reached the 7,000 mark, which is really appreciated. You know, I do appreciate the subscribers in particular. It's just an indication of people supporting my channel. You know, my passion is aquascaping, and in particular sharing it with the world, promoting aquascaping to the world. I think it's a beautiful hobby. It's a beautiful part of fish keeping, and I think the world would be a better place if everyone had an aquascape at home. So I normally do this sort of thing every week. I might not trim the plants every week, but I'll do a big water change. I'll clean the aquarium glass every week. I'll probably clean the rocks every 2 or 3 weeks. The glass filter inlet and outlet I'll clean once every 3 or 4 weeks, as well as the clear hose. And the aquarium pre-filter, I'm using a Fluval G6, which has a really easily removable pre-filter, which is, you know, I'll clean that every week because it's so easy. It's just an easy job. Cleared most of the floating plants there. I'll get rid of the rest of it during the water change and after the water change as well. Next job is to clean the stubborn algae from the rocks. I normally use an electric toothbrush. I normally use this one, which is quite soft bristles. It's an electric one which has got a built-in AAA battery, but it's actually, the algae is really quite stubborn now, so I've got a metal wire toothbrush which is much easier to clean the algae with. So it's just a case of scrubbing away. You don't want to scrub too hard because you might end up spilling water out the top of the tank. The water will go quite cloudy as the algae gets dislodged into the water, and last thing we'll follow up with a large water change, and hopefully the water will be crystal clear by the time we've finished. You don't have to keep the rocks spotlessly clean. A little bit of algae does help to make the aquascaper look a little bit more natural, but I think the rocks were far too green for my liking anyway. I like to see the contrast between the grey and the green of the plants, and the rocks themselves have a lovely white vein running through them that you can see, which obviously when it's covered with algae you don't get that nice contrast. You could add some nearite snails, they might keep the rocks clean, but in my experience they tend to lay white eggs which are really quite stubborn, and the eggs never hatch because they need salt water to breed in, so I tend not to use nearite snails, though they are quite popular with some aquascapers. I have to rely on good old-fashioned toothbrush or wire brush to clean my algae. Yeah, you can see the water's going quite cloudy now, and that's why I'm doing this last thing. This is the last stage of the maintenance process, apart from cleaning the filter pipes, etc. If I did this first, then I'd find trimming the plants a bit harder because I couldn't really see what I'm doing too well. The fish don't seem to mind. They're quite used to me getting my hands in there now. You might want to be careful when you're first doing your maintenance practices. If you've got new fish, they can be a little bit more skittish, but they'll soon get used to you being your hands in there. A top tip actually, just wash your hands thoroughly and rinse them thoroughly before you do any aquarium maintenance, especially if you're keeping sensitive shrimp. You know, if you've been handling chemicals or you know, anything that's potentially toxic, obviously you don't want that to be entering the water, so do give your hands a good clean. Some people like to wear latex gloves while they're maintaining their tanks. You know, aquarium maintenance tends to be perceived as a bit of a chore for a lot of fish keepers, but I actually enjoy the process. I set aside a bit of time every week for it, so you know, I'm mentally prepared for it. I know it's expected, and it's just a really good sense of satisfaction once you've finished. Once the aquarium's nice and clean, nice clean water, clean glass, clean glassware, the fish are happy, you've got lovely clean plants, clean hardscape. You know, it's just a nice process. You know, often go back to the old principle, delayed gratification. So, you know, some people would quite happily pay for an aquascape, you know, all grown in, looking good straight away. But actually, I like the delayed gratification. I like the journey to get to that point. So, you know, the journey is often better than the destination. So, you know, do take your time maintaining, try and enjoy it. You know, normally I'd have some music on in the background, but because I'm videoing, you know, some of you not like drum and bass too much, so I haven't got any of that on at the moment. I tend to have a cup of coffee while I'm doing it as well, just to keep me motivated, keep my energy levels up. So some of the algae will be really tricky to remove, especially as it's growing in like the indentations, which the brush is, you know, finding hard to reach. But actually that's not a problem. You know, as I said earlier, a little bit of algae isn't a bad thing. Looks natural. You know, this is an Iwagumi style aquascape, which kind of represents, you know, rocks on land. And you could see the green algae as maybe some moss perhaps growing. I haven't actually got any moss in the aquarium, I don't think it needs it. Okay, that's all the algae I need to get off the rocks. Next job is to do a huge water change. You can see how cloudy the water is. That cloudiness is pretty much all algae, possibly some floating organic matter from there trimming the plants. So I'm going to give the plants a bit of a wave just to dislodge any more waste organic matter, and I'll follow that up with a large water change. The fish aren't too happy, obviously there's a tiny bit of water in there, but I'm going to fill it up quite quickly with fresh water. They'll be fine just temporarily. Really interesting thing now, a lot of the plants are exposed to the air in the background. Now that means they can grab loads and loads of CO2 from the air, because the plants deal with CO2 in the air a lot easier than they deal with it in the aquarium water. And because we've got the bright light quite near the plants as well, they're going to be photosynthesizing like mad. And when I do fill up with water, you'll see, especially the plants in the background, they'll be purling, which means they're producing loads of oxygen visibly. You'll see oxygen bubbles being produced from the leaves, which is really cool, I think. Okay, we top up with fresh water now. This is dechlorinated tap water. I use my special red colander, which some of you may have seen already. I've actually had this colander since I started fish keeping 15 or so years ago, so God knows how many water changes this has seen. I like to use a colander because the water is spread evenly across this section here, which helps prevent too much disturbance of the soil and the plants. So if you imagine if I poured a bucket in really quickly without this, it would just cause devastation in the aquascape. So this is why I use one of these. Simply place it across the top of the tank like that, and then I can pour the water in relatively quickly. As you can see, it hasn't caused any clouding of the water, which is exactly what we want. Okay, so I've topped up with fresh dechlorinated tap water. I've cleaned the filter outlet and inlet and clear hose, and I've also cleaned the Fluval G6 pre-filter. You may have noticed I've swapped sides with the filter gear there, and that's because I was seeing fairly poor growth in the left hand corner, which indicates to me poor CO2 circulation, so I've just swapped it around and hopefully the CO2 bubbles will be hitting the other side much better. The whole process has taken me a couple of hours, so I've obviously compressed it into a shorter video for you guys. I hope you've liked the video. If you have done so, please subscribe and keep on scaping.